A big-time win against a team that's given them fits and someone right in front of them in the standings. Pacers beat the Magic. Huge win, and yet maybe not even the biggest story of the weekend as Bennedict Mathurin is out for the season. We'll talk about it all today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, lots to get to. Very news-filled weekend and very game-filled weekend for the Pacers, who pick up a huge one. They beat the Magic, a team right in front of them in that race for Eastern Conference playoff positioning, and a team that's given the Pacers fits twice this season. They do it in a meaningful way with their bench stepping up. Obi Toppin looks great. T.J. McConnell, 20 points each from both stars. And yet, maybe not even the biggest story of the season because Bennedict Mathurin has a torn right labrum. His season is over after 59 games, and the Pacers will have to find a way to adjust without their ascending second-year talent. So, man, do we have a lot to get to. Basically against any other team. If the Pacers had played anyone besides the Heat, Magic, Knicks, or 76ers, I would lead this episode with Bennedict Mathurin. That is a humongous story. It's a huge loss for the Pacers and huge for his career development. But given the current state of the team and their chase in the standings, I think leading with Pacers Magic is the right move because that is the bigger story. One, because it's more recent, and two, because the standings from 8 to 4 continue to be very jumbled. Pacers huge win Sunday night in Orlando over the Magic, and they did it in a very un-Pacers-y way, 111-97. It was very close to a stat that I've been talking about sometimes this season. Really, JMV tweets it at me all the time because he's dying for it to happen. The Pacers' first win under 110 points scored. So close to being this game. Siakam hit a 3 to get them over 110 with a minute and 1 second to go on an irrelevant shot. But 97 allowed, the fewest the Pacers have allowed all season, which is why that funky stat is even possible. Their defense was special. That was huge in this game. Before getting to the actual breakdown, why this win is so important is the Magic are 37 after this game. The Pacers are 36-29. The Magic are 37-28. That's one game apart. The Magic hold the tiebreaker, so really it's a game and a half apart. And that's why it was so important. Keeping up with a team that they can't have the tiebreaker against, keeping up with a team in that 4-8 range is absolutely critical. And oh, by the way, Sunday night, Philly played New York, meaning one of those teams was going to lose. One was going to win, but also one was going to lose. And the Heat somehow, out of nowhere, lost to the Wizards at home, 108-110. And so suddenly, the Pacers are in 7th. They're a half a game ahead of the Heat. They're a half game behind Philly, who plays New York tomorrow. If the Pacers beat the Thunder, they could get up to 6th by Tuesday. Obviously, they can't get ahead of themselves. They've lost some crummy games, but that's how tight this is. Currently, a game and a half. 2 games really separate 4 through 8. A game and a half separate 5 through 8. Pacers are currently a game and a half out of 4th. Like, it is all so tight and jumbled. So every win's important, but especially so against teams in this range. That's why this game was so significant and why it's worth talking about first. Pacers only have one more game against that group now, against the Heat, which will be huge for the standings, huge for the tiebreaker between those two teams. Just a lot at stake that night, but really a huge win for the Pacers to finally beat the Magic, too, a team that was the first team all season to really give Tyrese Haliburton fits back in November, and they were almost at 40 points at halftime. Pacers got crushed by them both times they played. The Magic size was just too much for this Pacers team, and the Pacers figured it out this time, right? There was a lot that is different. The first 2 times these two teams played was before Christmas, so no Siakam in those matchups before, and obviously other changes in terms of Buddy Hield being out. The Magic didn't really make any trades, but their team is still different, and all sorts of stuff matters. Jalen Suggs was unavailable. Ben Mathurin was unavailable. There's a lot that was different in this game, and yet I think the standout thing to me from this one was the just how the addition of Siakam changed the dynamic of this game, right? I was there in person, if you couldn't tell by the travel setup on YouTube or audio yet. But you can really see how big the Magic are up close. Like they have size everywhere. Their guard play is really what holds them back. But, you know, right away, my first note of the game was about the Aaron Nesmith-Franz Wagner matchup because Franz Wagner scored over Aaron Nesmith on the first possession. I said, oh, that's interesting. And looking back, if you'll remember, the guy on Franz Wagner the first 2 times these 2 teams played, which is why, again, it's relevant that they haven't played since Christmas, was Bruce Brown, right? They didn't have the size there. This time, Franz Wagner, 13 points on 14 shots. He really struggled. Paolo Banchero, huge size, tough to contain. Siakam had that assignment, 6 for 20, 19 points. Both Wagner and Banchero, more shots than points. And Siakam being in the lineup, one, gives them a 4-man, actual sizable 4-man who can guard Paolo Banchero, and it makes sense to do that. And he played well in that role. But 2, something that was talked about right after the trade even happened that made a lot of sense is him playing the 4 means Aaron Nesmith now playing the 3 instead of the 4. Or just in general, they have size at the 3 that isn't Bruce Brown or Andrew Nembhard. So now their matchup with Wagner, they're still a little undersized, but way less, right? And so that all fell into place meaningfully. Nesmith was fantastic on offense as well, but Myles Turner, who's on the center, Wendell Carter, 13 points on 13 shots. A very inefficient front court night for the Magic, whose size has killed the Pacers. Myles Turner, over 30 minutes, plus 14. Pascal Siakam, over 30 minutes, plus 6. And Aaron Nesmith, over 37 minutes, plus 25. Those 3 were huge in particular, and they all fell into place and could play their role more effectively because Pascal Siakam is now on the team, right? The Pacers' size makes more sense, and so they're not just getting totally outmatched, outpunched immediately against this Orlando team that kicked their butt. To this day, every time the Pacers lose to one of these crummy teams, people say or tweet, "Oh, worst loss of the season," and I will never get there because that Pacers home game against the Magic in November, I don't know how people have forgotten how bad it was. They were almost down 40 in the first half. That is always going to be the worst loss of this Pacers season to me, barring a miracle. But that is what changed so much that helped the Pacers. They had the size to play more defense, and they could get out in transition because this game was kind of slow-paced. Like the Pacers never were really popping and moving around. Because they were in transition, because they had favorable matchups to kind of isolate this Orlando team that has a pretty tight defense but isn't no stellar one-on-one defenders except for maybe Jonathan Isaac, played 19 minutes. They could get the buckets that they wanted, and Siakam was a big part of that, right? Haliburton still wasn't making the 3s, a little inaccurate on 2s in this one, 5 for 9. But Siakam could also isolate. He was slow to start this game and then got rolling, got to the foul line for 9 free throws, hit his shots. Siakam finished with 20 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. If there was a takeaway from this game, one singular one compared to past Magic games, it would be how the infusion of Pascal Siakam changed the way this matchup looks. And his play specifically to me was key. Obviously, when you have 20 points, that's huge. Haliburton also with 20 and 8. He played very well with 7 rebounds as well. If there's a secondary sort of takeaway from this win, it was that T.J. McConnell and Obi Toppin were just tremendous. And Rick Carlisle clearly made a point of those 2 having some sort of stronger impact early in the game. Pacers, I thought this was going to be a totally different podcast you're listening to early in this game. The first 6 minutes of basketball, 6 minutes, the Pacers scored 2 points. I lied. They scored 4 points. They scored 2 points in the first 5 minutes and 55 seconds. So I was 5 seconds away from being right. They sucked on offense to start the game, and that's being nice. Thankfully, they defended well in the first quarter. Magic only scored 24, and T.J. McConnell came in and saved their butts. But you get the point. They stunk on offense in the first couple minutes. With 6:22 to go in the first quarter, out comes Nembhard and Siakam. In comes McConnell and Toppin. Pacers offense stuck in the mud. They have no energy. They still needed the size that Siakam provides. Obviously, Toppin provides it differently with different skills. But that means over the last 6 minutes of the half, this isn't an awesome number. They only finished with 18 points. They scored 16 points, right? That'd be a 32-point quarter. That's pretty normal. Those substitutions put the Pacers offense in motion in a meaningful way. And Dustin Dopirak, sitting right next to me, was all over this. McConnell checks in. He scored twice on a jumper almost immediately. Myles Turner hits a shot with 4 minutes and 5 seconds left in the half, or the quarter, Then Obi Toppin gets an alley-oop from McConnell, which is significant. 3:40 to go in the first quarter. Obi Toppin alley-oop from McConnell. That gave the Pacers 10 points. The next Pacers made shot was from T.J. McConnell later in the quarter. The next Pacers made shot was from T.J. McConnell with 30 seconds left in the quarter. Early in the second quarter of this game, the Pacers' first make was from, you guessed it, a T.J. McConnell driving reverse layup with 8:53 to go in the quarter. And then Obi Toppin finally scored with 7:30 to go in the second quarter on a pass from Haliburton. Every made shot by the Pacers for almost 10 minutes of play, I think it was 9 something we calculated it to be, was either scored or assisted by T.J. McConnell. And that was huge because the Pacers stunk to start this game. They were down 15 early in the second quarter. They would have been down almost 30 like they were to the Magic in Indiana earlier this season, if not for McConnell's awesome play. And Toppin filled in a ton of gaps. He was really good as well. We'll talk about him in the second segment coming right up. But that start from McConnell was pivotal. The Pacers would have completely fallen apart without it. Instead, they were able to survive, be kind of in it, and then when the starters came back in, they were much better. They closed the half well, and they dominated the rest of the way. As soon as they got the lead in the third quarter, they controlled the game the rest of the way, and they needed someone to spark them and keep them going, and it was T.J. McConnell. 27 minutes, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Plus 10. He was fantastic. They played him with Haliburton again. If you've been listening to the show for the last week, you've heard me talk about it all the time because that lineup's been working really well. It's giving the Pacers a look they like. I might write about it soon. I asked Rick Carlisle about it after the game on Sunday. But that was a huge lineup thing for the Pacers. McConnell's play was huge for the Pacers, and so was Obi Toppin, who played a lot alongside McConnell in terms of substitution patterns. So much more to get to from this game before we talk about Bennedict Mathurin's injury. His season is over and what it means for the Pacers, and we'll do even more on that tomorrow with the guest. Before we get to any of that, though, we got to talk about Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Like the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's perfect for city drives and for great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-ins is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right in to the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. You can also check out the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder or the 2024 Nissan Armada. That Armada can change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger, explore further with the 2024 Nissan Armada. Take the Rogue, Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop now at nissanusa.com. And we are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day for your second listen. You got to check out Locked On Magic. I met Philip Rossman-Reich, the host, at the game. He was lovely. He's been on the show before, but his perspective on the Magic's first 2-game losing streak since January. They're playing very well. This is a key time for the Pacers to beat them, and they did. They found a way to do it. We talked to McConnell. We talked about the stars. Obi Toppin, fantastic. Excellent. Again, size was the name of the game to me in this game. Toppin, 7 for 9 from the field. That's always important. He only missed 1 2-point shot. 8 rebounds. That was also important. Matching a big Magic team on the glass. 17 points for Obi. He was terrific on both ends. The Magic have size, but none of their big guys are particularly fast. So Toppin can hold his own a little bit better defensively in a lot of those matchups, right? They were really trying to coerce Banchero and Wagner into jumpers. They were switching 4-5 after a really rough start in those matchups. Not as much with Toppin, but sometimes. And that really clicked and allowed them to defend well on the with their bigs, with their size, and Toppin was a big part of that. He was really terrific in this game. He played over 25 minutes because they needed him to, right? They went bigger. They had Nembhard in there for less time, or about the same amount of time as Toppin today. So that was kind of how the Pacers got him in the game, is they went bigger. They kept him out there. They even played him at center in a lineup with Siakam at one point. Some of that was due to some foul trouble, but I thought that was really noteworthy that he stepped up and was huge in this game and said a lot about their size. Isaiah Jackson played as a note just because Jalen Smith was sick. Isaiah Jackson filled in well, had a key dunk for momentum, or a key putback, for momentum in this game. A couple other notes from this one before we talk Ben Mathurin. 1, Jarris Walker in the rotation in the first half did not go super well. He did not play in the second half. 2, Aaron Nesmith, 4 for 6 from 3. That sounds very minor. A lot of his threes were in the second half when this game was a little closer. They were massive for momentum. First of all, he had a corner 3 that tied the game up to start the second half. Since returning from injury, Nesmith had made 3 total threes and was shooting 30% from deep. So to have a good night from 3 is certainly big for the Pacers if he can carry that momentum going forward, because he was among the league leaders in 3-point shooting earlier this season. Ben Shepherd also in the rotation, but I think the big notes would be the stars, of course, like I said, 20 points each for Siakam and Haliburton. How Siakam made the Pacers play was really important. Myles Turner's defense was awesome in this game. I can't believe I forgot to put my note down for this. 6 blocks. He was huge around the basket. He played really big in this game. There's a reason he was plus 14. And, of course, the Toppin McConnell duo was the saving grace that got the Pacers over the line when they were really struggling to start this game. We've got to pivot to the bad news for the Pacers over the weekend. The win was good. They needed it. They needed some good mojo. The bad news is they lost some production, quite a bit. Bennedict Mathurin, torn labrum. Wow. We talked a little bit about this on Friday's show because we learned before Thursday's game against the Timberwolves that Rick Carlisle said, yeah, you know what, Mathurin's going to be reevaluated after our coming road trip, and he was not going to play for the next week, and then we'll see from there. Hopefully it's not too serious. Well, it was serious. Turns out it's a torn labrum in Mathurin's right shoulder. His season is over. He will not be playing for the rest of the season. He according to the team, will be ready for opening night next year, which is good. But 59 games for Mathurin in year two, it's over. We can really get retrospective on his season at a different time. I want to talk about what this means for the Pacers right now going forward. But just statistically and big picture, I'll dive into this a little bit, and I'll probably talk more about this with our guest tomorrow, Tyler Smith. It's going to be really tough to evaluate this season in retrospect for Mathurin, because I think a big storyline for me heading into the season is, what does the Mathurin-Haliburton fit look like? And we didn't see as much of it as we anticipated. Some of that was because the Pacers' goals were clearly more about winning than I think a lot of people, including myself, anticipated. And some of that's because of injuries and in and outness. Some of that's because of how the lineups worked out. But that didn't become as much of the season as I expected, right? They were able to still play them enough together, like last year where they weren't starting together, but it all kind of clicked. This year, Haliburton and Mathurin together, 698 minutes out of Mathurin's total of 1,538. So under half they were together. And yet Pacers, really good offense in those minutes, really rough defense. So that is kind of a key thing that we didn't get enough information on. That's over 500 minutes. Like, you can glean some things from that if you're the Pacers. But, you know, for example, they played more minutes, again, 840 with Mathurin, no Haliburton, and 936 the other way around, right? So it is a little tough in that way. That said, I think individually, I'm the only one who thinks that Mathurin had like a very productive stepping forward season. Like, everybody thought that he would take these big steps as a scorer, maybe because he could and showed he could last year. But if you remember, now he did have one thing that disappointed me, and I'll bring that up in just a second. Before the season, last July, I did a whole show talking about his free throw rate and why it makes me so high on him, and why I just think the rest of his game coming around and being capable is all he needs to really be a fit with this Pacers team. But the free throw rate has to stay really good. And the free throw rate is solid, but not nearly as good as it was last year, right? That would be the thing that if you said, I have a little bit of concern, for lack of a better term, about Mathurin's season, you'd say, well, his free throw rate dropped to .338, which is good, but again, not tremendous. Like last year, he was like among the 10 best players in the league at getting to the line. For reference, his last year free throw rate right now would be about 10th in the league. Once again, 477 would put him I actually put him 7th in the NBA, whereas his current free throw rate puts him about 50th, and that's a big difference. But he did take key steps forward in lots of other ways. For example, per minute, per game stats, hard to compare because he's playing less minutes this year. Per minute, better defensive rebounding, better offensive rebounding, so better total rebounding per minute. Assists went up by almost 50%. Steals stayed the same. Blocks went up. Turnovers went down. And the scoring went down by 1.1 points per 36. Like, that's all pretty productive, right? You'd say that the stuff he needed to get better at to fit in with the team got better. Pull up three got better. Field goal percentage got better. Above average from three this season. Free throw rate about the same. So his true shooting percentage is actually lower, right? Because his free throw rate's lower, so he's not getting to the line where he was so efficient and still is as often. And so that you could, and I would actually probably say is a negative. But his actual on jump shots season, effective field goal percentage, he's up, right? Over 2% on effective field goal percentage. So his efficiency is just different. Maybe not worse or better, but on slightly lower usage. His assist rate went up, his rebound rate went up. Like, a lot of stuff got meaningfully better in a way that was noticeable. His pull-up three, his defensive team concepts came and went, but last year almost always went. So I think he got better this year, and I think he found ways to fit in with what the Pacers need. But it looks like this year, statistically, I don't know if this will be the case forever, but it looks like it kind of comes at the expense of him being of having success at the thing he was amazing at last year. So I'll be curious to get his take on that and really look back and dive into the numbers at the end of the season. For now, though, the Pacers lose that player, right? A guy who's gotten better at passing, gotten better on the glass, and was crushing it. I don't think people realize this, and I say that because I didn't realize this. crushing it since the All-Star break. Since the All-Star break, Ben Mathurin, 17.7 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Excellent numbers. Shooting pretty well from the field, over 40% from three. He was playing very well. He had 19 points in that final game against Dallas before his season ended. He played very well that night, especially considering he tore his labrum in the first half, apparently, of that game and was able to play through it. So big loss for the Pacers, and I think you lose all those things. But the scoring, the thing that he brings every night that is so well known, 14.5 per game, 11 shot attempts is going to be what the Pacers lose and have to figure out how to manage and move on with that. We'll talk about how they could do so, what Rick Carlisle said, much more on the injury coming up on Locked On Pacers. But first, got to talk to you guys about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals. Strictly the best place to hire. You have access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn has them, and it does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. It's so easy when you have that many quality candidates. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours on LinkedIn who know that small businesses are wearing so many hats, so they might not have the time or resources to hire. That's why LinkedIn constantly find ways to make the process easier. You even have a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, and 2.5 million businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. You could be next. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And we're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Heat. How did they lose to the Wizards at home? Oof. Pacers are all too familiar with losses like that, but they didn't have one over the weekend. Let's wrap up more Bennedict Mathurin coverage. Tomorrow, Tyler Smith's going to join us to talk more about this, what the Pacers need to rely on in other ways, what it means for the rest of the season. Look, that's a lot of shots to go around. And ironically, this is a terrible night to look at the Pacers box score to kind of glean how it could look just because of how the game went, right? On a normal night, Pacers take about 92 shots per game, the second highest in the NBA. They only took 78 against the Magic. They did get to the foul line quite a bit, 33 free throws, which impacts that number. But just looking at the spread of it, it seems like, and this is to me what I thought right away. So the natural thinking, and this is correct in some ways, is, okay, Mathurin's gone. Replacing his production, who's going to play his minutes, right? How is that going to be sorted out? So what I think is going to happen, and we'll see when the team is healthy if this is the case, is the bench will be right in this second, and we saw this against Minnesota, and then we saw in the first half tonight against Orlando, but not the second half, is the bench will be T.J. McConnell. Ben Shepherd will go down from the 3 to the 2, taking Mathurin's spot. Then Ben Shepherd's spot will be filled by Jarris Walker playing the 3, Obi at the 4, and then a center, whoever it is at the 5, is what I think is going to happen positionally. That is what happened in this game. That is what happened against Minnesota. But then when Doug McDermott returns, perhaps McDermott takes Jarris' spot, takes someone's spot and plays, right? Is Doug McDermott someone you want to play instead of your rookies? I don't know. The Pacers are in a playoff push. Jarris Walker did not play particularly well tonight. Remember, a few weeks ago, I was discussing with other people on this show, hey, this will be a topic come March. Should Ben Shepherd or McDermott play might become a thing. And then Ben Shepherd destroyed that argument, dominated. It's clearly him. But now Jarris is in the mix. Should it be Jarris Walker or Doug McDermott? I'm probably going to be on the side of Jarris if he can play well enough, but we'll see if that ends up being the case. Either way, that's how I think it's going to go in terms of the rotation. The starters will stay the same, although maybe they could decide to, take one of their wings out of the starting 5 and get a little bigger and then see if that makes their bench make a little more sense. Again, we'll see. They have some options. So what that could look like is, for example, Haliburton at the 1, either Nembhard or Nesmith at the 2, and then Siakam 3, Toppin 4, Turner 5, like Will Furr talked about on this show, or put Jalen Smith in for Toppin, whatever. And then the bench would feature a similar lineup, but instead it would have either Nesmith or Nembhard, whichever one comes to the bench, alongside Shepherd, McConnell, and a McDermott at the 4 or Walker at the 4, and then a big man. Either one of those makes sense. It'll all depend kind of on the health of the team or when Doug McDermott returns. I think we'll learn more. I think that's a natural way to fill the rotation spot Ben Mathurin occupied, but not necessarily the skill set. And that's where I think this is going to be fascinating is, again, it's a lot of shots. 11 shots is a lot. 11 moderately efficient shots is a lot. and 11 moderately efficient self-created shots is a lot. Again, his effective field goal percentage is quite good. His true shooting dipped because of his free throws. So if you look at this game specifically and you include free throws into your analysis, 15 shots for Haliburton plus 7 trips to the line. He probably had like 18, 19 true shooting possessions in there. Same-ish for Siakam with 14 shots and 9 free throw attempts. So off the bench, where you usually would see Mathurin play, 21 combined shots for McConnell and Toppin is the first number that makes me go, oh, maybe that's where we'll see it. And so I've kind of danced around what I wanted to start with because I wanted to talk about the rotation specifically. But like this season, McConnell per game is taking 7 shots a game. Toppin's taking 7 shots a game. That's 14. And in this game that you just watched, they took 21. That's 7 more. That's not all of Mathurin shots. That's some. To me, the big air quotes winner, there is no winner, but the person who's going to have more on-ball responsibility with Mathurin hurt is T.J. McConnell. He's playing well already, right? He's having a nice season. He's having a really nice year, 2024. He's proven to be very important. They like starting injured Nembhard because they can more easily play T.J. McConnell as the backup one. And now they're playing McConnell with Haliburton, and that lineup's going well. And Rick Carlisle likes it, right? That is something that his play continues to be something important to them. Just talked about that last week with John Washburn. Well, now with Mathurin out, they need so much ball handling with the bench, right? And so I think he is the guy who's going to benefit the most of like, hey, dude, they're going to need you to create for himself, for others. Like he is the guy. Their bench today was McConnell, great ball handler. Obi Toppin, not hardly at all a ball handler. Jarris Walker, I will be, but right now. Isaiah Jackson, not a ball handler right now. And Ben Shepherd, not a ball handler right now. So they have to play McConnell plus Haliburton more. They're going to have to play McConnell plus Nembhard more. But in general, that means they're playing McConnell more to get those duos to happen. So from an on-court replace Ben Mathurin's game perspective, I think McConnell will handle the ball a lot more. Will he shoot 11 more times? No. He'll spread those out like he does. He's a good passer. He penetrates the lane and gets other guys involved. So maybe it's just whoever plays with him more. And I think because you're going to see Nembhard plus McConnell lineups slightly more, because you're going to see Haliburton plus McConnell lineups slightly more, this might seem obvious because they're guards and it's a guard who got injured, but I think the guys who will take more shots and replace Mathurin shots as a result of this will be McConnell, Haliburton, and Nembhard. I think they'll be the guys who see the most, and maybe Aaron Nesmith for similar reasoning. We'll see the guys who see the most benefit in shot attempts from this. I think everybody else's role will be largely pretty similar in this situation. Aaron Nesmith maybe shouldn't have been in that group. He's not going to handle the ball a ton, but maybe. And so that's how I think the Pacers are going to immediately adjust, and then they'll figure out where their needs are from there, what adjustments they need to make from there, because that's a significant loss. He's a good Bennedict Mathurin, a good player, an improving player in many ways, and takes up a good chunk of usage for this Pacers team because he earned it, right? He was 4th on the team in shots per game, right? He was right there from the top 5 in minutes per game at 26, right? He's a very valuable player for what the Pacers were doing, and they don't have that anymore. They all talked about what they'll need to step up at to kind of fill those roles, and they have positionally players that make sense to play, but none of them have the same skill set at all from Ben Mathurin, and that's why I think it's going to take some interesting tweaks and changes from the Pacers rotationally and stylistically at times to get it done. But I think McConnell, big winner in terms of touching the ball, having production, feeling involved, and whoever plays more with him or plays well off of him in this soon coming stretch, and then again evolving as the season goes on, will be the secondary beneficiaries because they'll get more shots as a result of playing with a creator like T.J. McConnell. We'll see, though. It's only been one game. Well, I guess it's been 2 games. It's only been one game since the labrum tear was announced, and the Pacers did win. It's going to be interesting to see how they continue to navigate this and how their season continues to go. They got OKC on Tuesday, as tough as it gets on the road. They've got a back-to-back right after that with Chicago on Wednesday before 2 days off. And so guests are coming here on the Locked On Pacers podcast. Tyler Smith is going to join us tomorrow to talk about who needs to step up with Mathurin out, how that will impact how the Pacers change, all sorts of other stuff about this team heading into about their final month of the season. Then 2 straight game shows on the Thunder game and the Bulls game. And then Friday, Caitlin Cooper's going to join us. We'll have lots to talk about this team, their evolution to this point in the season, all sorts of good stuff. She knows this team better than anyone on the planet, and it'll be fun to talk to her about where they're at, where they're going, all sorts of stuff with a playoff push in their sights. We have so much to cover with this team. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Hope you guys enjoyed Pacers Magic. It was very fun to be there. I very much like the Kia Center And thank you to my friends for letting me stay with you as I continue to do things like this. Tomorrow, like I said, talking with Tyler Smith about the Thunder, about Ben Mathurin, so much more to come on that injury. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day. You can find me on Twitter at Tony R. East and the show at Locked On Pacers. Take care. We'll see you soon.